Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. We've got a show planned for you. Hope you enjoy it. A little bit later on, we'll go to open phones. That's, of course, as we always do in the 3 o'clock hour. In the 2 o'clock hour, we woke up this morning to the tragic news that Rob Reiner passed away, was found in his home murdered, and we only learned later on in the morning that his son was in custody. We'll check in with Matt Wolf and talk about how successful he was and what a great movie maker he was. We'll look back at the life of Rob Reiner with Matt Wolf in the hour number 2. But first hour, you can't go anywhere, can't turn on a television, you can't turn on the internet without some type of online gambling ad that is in your face. And even gamblers say it's overwhelming. Non-gamblers say enough already with the online gambling, but it is everywhere. 38 states now allow you to gamble from your phone. And there was a book that came out earlier this year. It was called Losing It. And it is the story of gambling and gambling on sports. Jonathan Cohen is the author. The book is called Losing It. Jonathan, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having me while I have $15,000 on Monday Night Football at the moment. So great to be here.
I hope you're kidding.
I am. I absolutely am.
Okay, good. It seems like you're a voice in the wilderness. Everybody, the barn doors open, the gambling sites are all working, and everyone's rushing to their phones. No one's ringing the bell saying, guys, wait a minute, this might be a bad idea. It seems like you're one of the few.
Okay. Yes and no. Like, yes, lots of people, 50% of American men, for example, have a sports betting account on their phone. But I like to think that I'm not as in the wilderness as you might think, just because even polls show that lots of people sort of have this sense like you do, that gambling is everywhere all of a sudden, and are we sure that's good? So I don't want to say, a political backlash is brewing or it's coming, or, I'm going to run for president on the anti-sports gambling party or whatever. But I think lots of people are sort of gradually waking up to the harms, and I'm not going to give myself credit for my book, is the one that did it. But I think lots of people, more people than you think, sort of are wondering what exactly we've unleashed here.
What is it that caught your attention to this? What is it that you said, wait a minute, there needs to be a book here, or there's a book here? Because, I mean, just anecdotally, you can sort of see the landscape over the last 6 months. But what was it in your world where you said, wait a minute, this is a problem?
Yeah, so honestly, it was sort of that same sort of anecdotal sense of seeing something weird was happening to sports that I've grown up watching and had been a fan of my whole life. And my last book before this one is on the American state lottery system, so I already had a sense of gambling policy and how the way it sort of reveals so much about American life and the American dream. And then this sports gambling thing was happening, and it seemed weird, and we didn't have any data at the time, but it sure seemed like it was dangerous or unnecessarily dangerous, and people were running into trouble. So that's really all I had to go on. I don't have like an uncle who's an addicted gambler or something. I don't have a bone to pick with the industry. I really was just trying to tell the story of, okay, how did we get here, and where exactly are we?
Of all the things in your book and of all the things that I've read over the last couple of months and about this, and we can get into that, one of the things that sticks out to sort of explain how big this is, we know that the big sites are owned by the professional sports leagues, right? Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, they all have a piece of these. But you write in the book, Losing Big, that the NFL grossed $132 million just in commercials to promote the gambling sites. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, well, you have that correct. I think that's a 2021 or 2022 figure. But yes, the one of the key ways that we got sports gambling was we got the leagues on board. And one of the reasons the leagues are on board was because of the promotional opportunities.
But they also take a cut of the purse, do they not? I mean, they ultimately own some of these organizations.
Yeah, they don't outright own them, per se. They own them in that the DraftKings, FanDuel, all these big companies, they have to pay a fee to the sports leagues to be their the quote unquote official licensed provider of sports gambling services. So the NFL doesn't like literally own MGM, but the NFL, if it wanted to, could say, hey, MGM, cut this out or do this or do that. And so they sort of own them in a more figurative sense.
Got it. So talk about, we keep hearing, I'm in Missouri. We just recently passed it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we just recently passed it. It was only by a few hundred votes that it passed, but it still passed. But one of the things they were bringing up is that in Kansas, in the state of Kansas, as well as other states, the number of bankruptcies are going up exponentially once they legalize sports gambling. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kansas, of course, a state notorious for consumer protections and big government intervention. So we'll see what comes of it. But yes, studies show that when sports gambling arrives in a state within a few months or a few years, you see a 28 to 30% increase in personal bankruptcies, an increase in auto loan delinquencies, increase in use of debt consolidation loans, reduction in access to credit provided by credit card companies, and reduced savings and investment in low-income households. So these are the second-order effects. This is the proof that I was waiting for when I first started writing the book of the financial harms that are so great and that are so vast and are affecting so many people that it is showing up in the percentage of Kansas households that go into bankruptcy is affected by the rise in sports betting.
You also say, and it's also proven to be true, that the gambling addiction facilities, standing room only, is that true?
Yeah, this is a little harder to tell. This data is anecdotal, I'll say, but some of the providers I've spoken to, yes, and I think more to the point of if it's not just that there are more people sort of pursuing gambling addiction treatment, it's that the demographics of the people who are pursuing treatment are changing, and it's not just the little old lady who is sitting at the slot machine or the retiree who is playing poker. It's like young men, it's college students. It's 19-year-olds who are gambling on crypto or day trading. They're the ones who are now sort of flooding these gambling treatment provider services or Gamblers Anonymous meetings because that's the new face of gambling addiction in America.
We'll get into all of how they gamble and what they gamble on and the prop bets and all that type of stuff. But you write in your book, Losing Big, that gambling addiction is different than drug addiction, is different from alcohol addiction. How is a gambling addiction, which people don't even sort of comprehend, but it's because it just stop gambling. But how is gambling addiction different than those other addictions?
Right. So I'll say it's similar, first of all, just in terms of even though it's not a substance that you're injecting or ingesting into your body, it actually does change your brain chemistry. In the same way that you can be addicted to gambling. So as you said, someone who has a gambling addiction is not choosing to gamble. They are sort of chemically hooked on the dopamine from gambling. And what makes gambling addiction even more insidious than alcohol or drug addiction is someone who's addicted to alcohol, for example, they have no reasonable right to expect that, if they just drink one more case of beer or take a couple more shots, their alcoholism is going to be cured. Right, that's not going to happen. That's not realistic. But someone who has a gambling addiction, they might be down $20,000, like me after this Miami Dolphins game. But it's reasonable. It's not impossible to say, if I just hit one more parlay, I could win $1 million. I could win $100,000, and all my debt, all the problems from my gambling could be wiped away. So it just keeps you hooked, and this irrational thinking that people have just makes them suffer more and more and just drives them deeper and deeper into the hole in a way that's different from how substance addiction works. So
where the alcoholic still goes and drinks, he knows he's going down the hole. The gambling addict thinks, oh no, wait a minute, I win one of these, I'm back to even and I'm fine.
It's so easy to justify. Yeah, exactly. In a way that obviously only leads them to more ruin or eventual ruin.
Jonathan Cohen, we're just getting started. The book is called Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. We'll talk to him the rest of the hour. Some interesting stats coming up. Stay right there. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Gambling on your phone, it's a thing, and it's everywhere. The book is called Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. Jonathan Cohen, our guest for the hour. You mentioned, Jonathan, that the gambling addiction places are filled with people. You mentioned crypto, but it's crypto, derivatives, stocks, sports. It's sort of not just sports. It's sort of everything, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely everything. And lots of things that used to be normal and like something like investing, for example, used to, you have to call up somebody and you hear the fax machine. Now you can do it on your phone. You can do what are called zero options, basically sort of like the slot machine equivalent of investing. So lots of apps, lots of sort of financial products that are, if not actually gambling, then basically gambling.
What's amazing to me is I've talked to a couple of people who are addicted to gambling. And this one woman I spoke to, she was addicted to slots. And I asked her, I said, what was the goal, right? What would happen when you won big? And she told me that when she won, she was so excited because all that meant was that she could stay at the casino longer. It wasn't like she could win and then pay off her car loan or pay her mortgage. She just wanted to stay longer at the casino. And if she won, all that meant was she had more money to stay longer at the casino. So they're gambling for no end, right? The money isn't the issue, or is it?
No, the journey is the destination. Is sort of what it amounts to, and there are two generally speaking, two categories of people who are addicted to gambling. They call them escape gamblers and action gamblers. But what it boils down to are in both categories. What someone is pursuing is that moment of uncertainty. If you imagine your friend, the slot player, the moment the wheels are spinning when you don't know if you're going to win or you're going to lose, that's what they're chasing, that sort of brief high of uncertainty. That's what it's about. Or for slot players, they're fall into this category of escape gamblers. What they're pursuing is sort of the flow state that you get into when you're just sitting at a slot machine for hours at an end, just putting more quarters in and hours and hours and hours go by, and you sort of lose where you are and you lose track of time and lose track of everything. And that's what they're chasing, and that's sort of the dopamine delivery, and that's what makes gambling another thing that makes gambling so insidious.
Right, because you're not, even if you win, it doesn't matter, right? I mean,
it's almost
who
disappointing because now you have
Right.
to stop, and the guy has to come, he has to give you a check and whatever. And it's like, no, I'm just here to sort of play slots. I'm not here to deal with a tax form or something.
One of the things that's also amazing to me in all of this is to go back to, right, the riverboat gambling. And they had $500 loss limits, and you had to leave the dock and go down the river for 2 hours at a time. And once you lost $500, they made you leave the boat. Right now you can gamble on your phone 24 hours a day. Where are the Christian conservatives? They were the ones ringing the bell against all of this. They don't seem to be against this anymore. Did you do any research into what happened to those guys?
Yes, it's one of my big questions, and you got to wonder if they're out there, they're just quiet. In Missouri, for example, the ballot initiative won by just 50.4%, as you said, and so you got to wonder maybe a lot of the state's Christian community fall in that 49.6%. But no, you've pointed to a great sort of paradox in American politics right now, which is in some states especially, the religious right seems more powerful than ever. And yet this big issue that for a long time they really, really cared about, of gambling, every single state, when they were proposing a lottery, the Christian community stood up and said no. And in every state, eventually they lost, with the exception of Alabama. They lost again and again and again. So for whatever reason, whether it was prudishness, whether their values changed, religious Christians have decided that they're gonna stay involved in issues like abortion, they're gonna stay involved in issues like gay marriage, but they're gonna give up on gambling. And they basically have stopped caring about it. It's no longer central to their campaign and their politics as it once was. And I think that it's a real missed opportunity, because this is an area where I agree with them 100%. I think they have the right perspective that it's not a good stewardship of money, and it's not a safe product to have, for 18-year-olds to have on their phones. And they really could be leading the way in this moral crusade. And as far as I can tell, it's just not happening.
Yeah. The book is called Losing Big. There was a story out a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was last weekend I was reading. Right, 38 states legalize gambling for sports, but there's only 7 or 8 states that legalize slot machines on your phone. And apparently the money they're making on the slot machines dwarfs the money they're making on the sports betting on your phones.
That's right. And I'll say this, I live in Connecticut, which is one of those 7 states that has slot machines on your phone. And I can tell you, even as someone who's written a book about sports gambling, I can't tell you how quickly I lost $300 playing blackjack on my phone, just like getting into the flow state and just sort of trying it out and seeing what it's all about. It's terrifying. It is a huge moneymaker. Unlike sports, sports shuts down. At 11 o'clock Eastern tonight, 12 o'clock Eastern, Monday Night Football is going to be over, and there's not going to be any major professional sports that are still happening. Slot machines never close. Online blackjack never closes. Lots of people who don't care about sports are happy to gamble on cards or slot machines or whatever. So you not only increase the player base, you increase the time that you can get people playing. You can play 7 hands of blackjack on your phone at one time, which I promise I never did. It's terrifying. And this is to the degree that sort of sports gambling feels like it's new. The sports gambling companies don't want to become sports gambling companies. They want to be online casino companies. They want to use sports betting to sort of pivot into this next area, and where the real money is, and that is in online casino.
Are they having? They say you've got to be over 18, or you have to be over 21. Are there any guidelines in place to stop 16-year-olds from gambling?
So there are. So if you're talking about like the official apps like DraftKings, FanDuel, and the like, those guidelines are really, really good. Truly, unless a parent is being negligent and is letting their kid gamble with using their social security number, but there are real age verification systems in place on the major sportsbook apps that advertise. But then there are, of course, all these other apps that don't have those kinds of verification systems. I don't need to advertise for them and name them, but there are all these sort of daily fantasy companies that have this sort of loophole where they're basically offering sports gambling, but the age verification isn't as good. And of course, on Robinhood or on any of these prediction markets, you only have to be 18. And so on the real apps, I have all sorts of problems with the apps. I'll tell you, with the sports gambling companies. But age verification is one thing they absolutely are getting right compared to some alternatives.
Jonathan Cohen, the book is called Losing Big. That's the gambling side. What about the effect of the actual game itself? Are we creating a whole lot of Pete Roses? We'll get into that with Jonathan Cohen, the author of Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. McGraw Millhaven, America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
The book is called Losing Big. Jonathan Cohen, our guest. Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. Jonathan, the idea was that they would legalize it, tax it, regulate it, and the states would make money. Are the states making any money on this?
Money? It's not a lot. It's on average less than 1% of each state's total revenue. And, no lawmaker is ever going to turn down what they see as sort of free money. But this is not, this is no golden goose.
Yeah. In your book, you say $121 billion was gambled in 2023. That's more than America spent on movies and video games combined?
That's right. This is sort of the weird, dirty secret about sports gambling and gambling in general, which is people spend so much on gambling of all kinds, but including sports gambling, but it's sort of deceptive because you win back a lot of that money. I mean, some people don't win back anything, but even on average, people are going to win back around 90% of the amount of money they spend. So it's like if you went to Starbucks and you got a 90% refund right after, all of a sudden, Starbucks. You spend a lot more at Starbucks. So it's yes, they're spending a lot more on that, but that doesn't mean they're losing that much money. That's just how much they're spending on it in the first place.
Right. If they're betting $100 and they're losing $90 every night, or they're winning $90 every night, then they're only losing $10 a night. Yeah.
Right. Think about someone who buys a $20 scratch ticket. They win $10. They put that back in. They win 5. They win 2. They bet that. All of a sudden, they bet $35, and they've only started with 20 in the first place. So it's sort of like that.
Are there any winners? Anybody ever win their $1 million and cash out and live on an island somewhere in Hawaii?
Not me, I'll tell you that. So this is the other dirty secret, right? There are all sorts of professional gamblers, there have been for a long time, who sort of, these are guys who, they have inside information, or they have all these crazy algorithms that and they are all guys that let them sort of win money from the sports books. But because it's sort of like a card counter in a casino. Once the casino figures out that you're counting cards and that you're going to win, they can kick you out. Thank you for your business. It's time to go. And they do the exact same thing on sports books. If they realize that you're going to win consistently and that you're going to win their money, you get kicked out or you get limited. You can only bet 5 cents in some cases on an NBA game. So no, really what it amounts to is if you are able to gamble as much money as you can or as you want on your sportsbook app, it's because the companies think you're stupid and that they think you're going to lose money over the long term. And the second they realize you are going to end up bilking them for millions and you're going to end up on an island somewhere, you're going to get cut off.
What about these commercials they air during sporting events where they say, usually they're usually in like NCAA tournament games or NCAA bowl games or NCAA games where they say, hey, college students, lay off your classmates. They didn't lose the game on purpose. So, right? I mean, they're basically saying stop having death threats towards the players on the team at your university. And I'm semi-serious here. I'm not that far off from what it actually says.
Yeah, no, this is a real where there's smoke, there's fire situation where they wouldn't need to have those kind of ads if it wasn't happening. And there are all sorts of athletes at professional and collegiate levels who've reported receiving death threats from their fans or from the opposing fans. Someone else, oh, you cost me my parlay. Oh, you lost me money. And you can imagine a college athlete is especially vulnerable in this situation. They're not living in some mansion outside of town, right? They're like living in the dorm room next to you. So there's nothing stopping someone from storming into their dorm room and be like, hey, bro, you missed a free throw and you cost me my parlay. So, again, this is just sort of symptomatic to me of the word in the title of the book is reckless, of how reckless this all was. And when no one thought, oh, man, I wonder if we should allow gambling on college sports with a bunch of amateur athletes who live in dorms. No one thought to sort of have these regulations in place before we started. And now the NCAA is sort of realizing what a mess it's in and sort of going back and trying to clean it up.
Yeah, and we're some of the bigger the Chauncey Billups stories are out there, right? The Cleveland Indians pitcher who threw it to the backstop because it was a parlay. But, I mean, people think these are one-offs, right? You had the Alabama baseball coach. You had a couple of NBA players. You got Major League Baseball players. I mean, every week it seems like there's another athlete who's getting busted, caught up somehow in this gambling thing. Yeah,
and this is the other sort of there's so many dirty secrets at this point that I've listed that they're not dirty or they're not secrets. Is that we were promised this wasn't going to happen anymore. We were promised that by bringing sports gambling into the light, by legalizing it, it was going to help the integrity of professional sports because we'd be able to catch these sort of nefarious actors before or as they were gambling. And all it's really done is made gambling a lot more popular and therefore increased the odds that some random baseball player at some university you've never heard of is trying to cash out. He's never going to go pro, right? Oh, let me try to make some money off of sports betting then. So yes, I'm not surprised that these scandals have come about, and I think the sports leagues were sort of naive to think that we were going to get less corruption in sports, not more, once you put gambling apps on every single 19-year-old's phone.
And it's only going to get worse, right? I mean, isn't this just the beginning?
Yeah. Well, so here, this is what's crazy, and this is a credit to a story by Danny Funds of The New Yorker, which is, I got to think that the NBA is breathing a sigh of relief that it was Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier, because like who the hell are Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups? You know what I mean? No one's heard of them unless you're a weird NBA fan like me. But what happens if it was Anthony Edwards? What happens if it's LeBron James? If it's Luka Doncic, some household name, someone who's in commercials? The NBA at that point might not have an incentive to make it public. They might have an incentive to hush it up, to do what some people think happened to Michael Jordan in the mid-1990s when he was asked to go away because of his gambling for the NBA. So they framed it as a retirement, to baseball. That's what's question is what is this really about? Because the most valuable commodity the sports leagues have is not the integrity of their product. It's the perception of the integrity of their product. So anything that damages not the actual integrity, but the perception of the integrity is what's dangerous. So you're right. There's a good chance this only gets worse, but there's a chance we never hear about the worst scandal because it gets brushed up because it would be just such an existential crisis for the league.
Well, then you had Shohei Ohtani's interpreter caught up in all this as well, right? So here, right next to the biggest star in the sport, you got a guy.
Yeah, and this is sort of so on paper, right? The Shohei Ohtani scandal technically has nothing to do with legalized sports gambling because his interpreter was gambling with illegal bookies and so on, but it doesn't matter. And to most people, it's hard to draw that distinction. And it just seems, just to your point at the very beginning, that this just suddenly seems like it's everywhere. It just feels like, oh, there's another sports gambling scandal. They're probably related to the DraftKings ads that I see every 5 seconds. And I don't blame people for sort of conflating those two and for getting them mixed up a little bit.
What about the fact that these sports apps sign up for $5 and we'll give you $300 in gambling credits? I mean, that's like walking down to the corner and, hey, we'll give you 3 marijuana joints and a couple of lines of cocaine for free. I mean, they're basically enticing you to get you hooked.
Yeah, and it's all about, thinking or making people think that it's easy. They had some promotion a couple of years ago of like, bet $20 to win $100 that the Buffalo Bills will complete one pass. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Buffalo Bills are going to complete one pass, but they want you to think that it's easy, and they want you to win your first bet, and they want you to, if you lose your first bet, you get some promotion where you get $200 or you get your money back or something, because they want you to think that it's easy, and when you think it's easy, you have this overconfidence that's really hard to shake. So even if you lose your next 10 bets, it's like, I'm just on a bad streak. I know I'm good at this. And I can't tell you how many of the young men I spoke to who ran into trouble of various forms with gambling, how many of them had won their first bet, and basically the rest of their time was just sort of chasing the high they got from that first win.
Obviously, you're not putting this genie back in the bottle, but is anybody talking about regulating this? Anybody talking about doing away with some of these prop bets? Any type of anything to stem this tide? Because it's only going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, there are lots of conversations happening, and there's a couple of places where it could happen, where sort of it could be fixed, right? Of course, the lawmakers themselves could sort of change the regulations or change the laws. The regulators, the state agencies that are in charge of running it, they could hold the companies' feet to the fire a little bit. The companies, of course, could just change their behavior and decide to make a little bit less money and be and be less predatory. And then I think a big area so I don't want to overlook is just sort of kitchen table conversations. Mom and dad now know that I have a 3-year-old, so what do I know? But parents of teenagers know to talk to their kids about alcohol, about pornography, about drugs, and I think gambling needs to be on the list. I think gambling needs to be on the list of something parents talk to like their 8-year-olds about, because there are gambling mechanics built into all these video games that children are playing. So I don't want to say that we're defenseless unless our lawmakers get to action, because our lawmakers can't do anything on a lot of issues. But I think there is some hope, and there's a way to sort of stem this tide, or at least ward off the worst of it.
Jonathan Cohen, our guest, a couple more minutes left with him. The book is called Losing Big, came out earlier this year, getting a lot of attention on this subject. Can you gamble and not ruin your life? Right, there are some people who can have a drink on a Saturday night and not have another drink for 3 months. There are people who can have a cigarette once in a while. Can people gamble once in a while and put it down and walk away?
Absolutely, and that's sort of it's hard to reckon with, but it's absolutely the alcohol comparison is exactly right. 60% of gamblers in last NFL season accounted for 1% of gambling revenue on the NFL. So most people are in fact doing it safely, but the problem is it's sort of just like alcohol, as you said. One bad night of drinking or one bad night of gambling can ruin your life, even if you do it 99% of the time. You do it safely. In 99% of many drinkers are not going to get addicted, are not going to develop problems, just like many gamblers are not going to develop problems. But the question for me is, okay, so how do we set it up such that it is almost impossible for someone to start off casually, to start off with the equivalent of a drink on a Saturday night, or maybe a bet on their favorite NFL team, and for that to sort of snowball and develop into gambling addiction. That's what I want to stop, because I don't want to stop my ability to bet $12 on the Steelers tonight. You know what I mean? That's not an issue to me, and that is a way to increase your enjoyment of sports. Fine, go and have your kicks. The problem is we've set it up so that once I lose, and I'm going to get really mad, and I can start chasing my losses, and then I can start running into trouble.
They also got this thing like the badminton game in Bangladesh on a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Who do you like on that one, by the way?
Right. I mean, people don't realize when there's not a football game on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night, people find some type of cricket game in India to bet on, and the algorithms or the video of that game is off the charts because people are just looking for something to bet on.
Yeah, that's right. And this is something that's uniquely modern, and I think one of the easy fixes, and we can talk about fixes, but to me, a really easy one is getting rid of these insane betting markets that only someone with a gambling addiction would even think about gambling on in the first place.
What about the poly markets and where they're gambling on like current events? Right? I mean, that's another thing where it's just never ending. And I don't even know how to wrap my head around that one.
Right. So this is a relatively new phenomenon, and I think lots of people in the gambling world are sort of holding their breath a little bit to see where this goes. But this, to me, we already mentioned crypto and day trading. This, to me, represents sort of the culmination of what I've called the gamification of American culture. Just everything turning into gambling, and now, in this case, quite literally, because now there are prediction markets that let you gamble on who's going to show up at Taylor Swift's wedding, what the weather in Miami is going to be tomorrow, or an election outcome, or a sports game. You can bet on sports through prediction markets because of all sorts of legal loopholes. So to me, on the one hand, these are just another sports gambling website, because by far the most common use of these prediction markets is actually just to gamble on sports for people who live in states like Texas and California that don't have legal sports gambling yet. But there's this other problem of now we're getting CNN and CNBC have both announced they're going to integrate one of Polymarket's competitors, Kalshi, into their coverage. And so I'm not sure what it's going to look like when we, if you didn't like all the ESPN gambling content, wait until you get CNN gambling content. Good luck to all of us.
Jonathan, last question. Do you see Major League Baseball banning, or these apps banning the prop bets? Is this guy going to strike out, hit a home run? Is this person going to throw a fastball or a strike or a ball, and just sort of bet on the actual outcome of the game, and just that's it, or no?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get rid of them entirely. I think the more likely, they might get rid of some of the props. I think the individual individual pitch props, for example, whether the next pitch is going to be 88 miles an hour or not. I think that there's a chance that some of those go away. I could have told them for this 7 years ago, by the way. If they'd asked me, I would have told them, why would you ever need to gamble on whether the next pitch is going to be a ball in a baseball game? But I think that's sort of more likely. And then the other version of it, the flip side, is just cutting down how much money you can bet on some of these things. You can't bet $10,000 on a pitch, or you can't bet $10,000 on a single player to strike out, but you can bet $200, maybe $20. Something that lets people who enjoy those kinds of bets use them, but not let any serious money that might put the integrity of the game at risk.
Jonathan Cohen, since the book came out, Losing Big, what's been the reaction?
It's a little crazier than I thought, honestly. I'm used to putting out these academic books that, yeah, that's nice. Okay, good for you and your little academic book. But I was, this is the first book on the subject. Got to do a lot of radio, a lot of podcasts. I got to go on the Daily Show, which was crazy. I think people asking a lot of the same questions that you have of, how did we get here and where are we going? And I'm just trying to sort of be a public intellectual on the issue and provide a note of caution. And really my number one takeaway is that it didn't have to be this way. And it still doesn't, because we still have time to get it right.
Jonathan Cohen, the book is called Losing Big. Thanks for checking in. The book is called Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. Jonathan, thanks for your time tonight. Good luck.
Thanks, McGraw. Good luck.
You got it. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Millhaven.
These gambling sites are so insidious, right? They have sound, they have music, they have flashing colors, all to overstimulate your mind. Then, of course, they send you push notifications. Hey, the game's starting in 5 minutes. Don't forget to miss out, right? Triggering FOMO, right? Oh, my goodness. I got to get a bet down. They entice you. They give you points, free money to gamble along the way, right? Oh, hey, you almost won that game. Here's another chance to bet. Here's a do-over. You were so close. Here, do it over again. They're constantly sending you notifications. Hey, don't forget about that badminton game in Bangladesh starting in 5 minutes. Never ending. They're not there, as my father would always say. You see that casino over there? That casino was not built on the winners. That casino was built on the losers. They're not there to give you money. And how about the story that if you actually do win, they throttle your chance to bet more. So it's like they ban you from playing because they know you're going to win. They only want the losers. So if you're gambling, if they allow you to gamble, they know you're a loser. Crazy stuff. Stay right there. We're done with hour number one. The tragedy of Rob Reiner. We'll talk with Matt Wolf of CBS News Entertainment coming up next hour. Stay right there. Our executive director tonight is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Well, this morning, we woke up to the news that Rob Reiner and his wife were found murdered in their Los Angeles home, and you gasped like the rest of us, only to find out a little bit later on in the morning that his son was arrested in conjunction with what happened. That's really much all we know, and I don't want to get into speculation or anything else, but I did want to talk about Rob Reiner tonight because I think for many of us, there's a movie. He's such a great storyteller, and he is so iconic and so many wonderful stories. I wanted to just sort of talk a little bit about the man and his art because he deserves a place in the Hall of Fame, the Mount Rushmore of movie directors, a giant in the industry. Rob Reiner has died, and I just want to sort of talk about it with a friend of ours, CBS News Entertainment reporter and friend of the show, Matt Wolf, joins us. Matt, good evening. Thanks for staying up late with us on America at Night.
Yeah, for you, man. Anyway, anytime, a fellow Jet fan. We talk about this all the time, right? We commiserate over these things.
You had a chance to interview Rob Reiner a couple times.
Yeah, actually, it was about back in 2016. He was promoting his movie LBJ, which is all about Lyndon Baines Johnson in the days after Kennedy's assassination, and it starred Woody Harrelson as President Johnson, and it's a terrific film, like most of his movies. You should check it out sometime. Vastly underrated movie. And, it was weird. I mean, take you behind the curtain. When you go in for these junkets and these interviews, they give you like X amount of time with, actor or director. And I had about, I think it was exactly, I don't remember, like 8 minutes with him or 10 minutes, whatever. And it just turned into this conversation just about movies and pop culture and what makes things tick for him. And I remember him telling me specifically that, after the semi-success of Spinal Tap, he goes on to direct this little movie, Stand By Me. And he said, aside from the success of that, he goes, that was the movie, for me, he said, that really made me feel that I could do this for a living. You know, he could always fall back on acting. That's true and everything. But at that point, you know, he had gone way beyond his time as, say, Michael Stivic on All in the Family, and he was becoming something more at that point. And then, of course, the resume just grows from there, right? Misery, where he gives an almost unknown actress by the name of Kathy Bates a chance. Kathy Bates goes on to win the Academy Award for that. Look at When Harry Met Sally. Look at A Few Good Men. I mean, these are motion pictures that are burned into our conscious for whatever, you know, reasons, whether it's Jack Nicholson's You Can't Handle the Truth or Meg Ryan's scene at Katz's Deli there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everything. He was a master storyteller and a master at the craft of directing.
Yeah, so let's talk about Stand By Me for a moment, because you mentioned This Is Spinal Tap, which became a cult classic early on. I mean, that was sort of an underground success.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, people were like, hey, did you see This Is Spinal Tap? And it sort of had a life of its own outside of a movie theater or the video store or whatever. It was just sort of this sort of like bootleg tape of This Is Spinal Tap.
Exactly,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That was like one of the first viral movies, I guess you could say. That's a great point.
Yeah.
The lines, 11, 11.
Right. So he goes from This Is Spinal Tap to A Sure Thing, which was a solid movie with John Cusack, Daphne Zuniga. I mean, that was a solid movie. But then to do Stand By Me, and now I know it's, for me, it was place and time, who I saw it with, when I saw it, a summer movie in 1986. That movie haunts me. I still watch that movie today. It is one of the greatest movies ever made for all sorts of reasons. I think that's in the pantheon of greatest movies ever made.
You're absolutely right. And here's the key to it, to movies like this. And you could even make the argument that Ron Howard also has directed similar movies. You know, successful movies involving characters, whether they're fictional or based on real life, you have to find something that resonates with the audience. Now, we were all kids at one point, right? We thought that the kids that we hung out with in junior high and even into high school were going to be our best friends for life. We're all going to be growing up and going to each other's weddings and everything. But, you know, the ending of that, it's sort of like with Richard Dreyfuss doing the voiceover. You know, you lose touch with these people. People move on. They lead different lives, and some of them don't stay around in this life. I mean, that's just the sad fact of life. And a true director can take that and put something on the screen like what he did with that brilliant cast. Everybody from Kiefer Sutherland on down, everybody had such a great role to play in that. And that's why a movie like Stand By Me stays with you.
The movie you're talking about, or the line you're talking about, is people come in and out of your lives like busboys in a restaurant, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and how about the train scene where you're just, I mean, you're on the edge of you know the train's coming, right? They're walking across the bridge. You know the train's coming, and yet you're just, the conversations of the kids, and it's just, that movie, I can watch that. I've watched that movie, I don't know, 100 times, and it always gets me.
And all of a sudden with the soundtrack, too, with Benny King, all of a sudden Benny King has this new life, you know, with this song and all the other songs that were in it, like Lollipop, Lollipop, you know, that whole sequence.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about the boys you hung out with as a kid who, again, thought were going to be you were going to be with them forever, but time marches on. That's how it goes. It's a hurtful part of life, you know, when you're missing somebody. And today we are certainly missing Rob Reiner. I can't tell you as a human being how this has affected me today, because I grew up with Rob, watching him as Michael Stivic in All in the Family in the 70s. I was a 6-year-old kid watching, you know, this show. I mean, really, you know, because that's the kind of show you want to expose a 6-year-old to. But I will say this. There is a scene, and it's floating around out there on YouTube and on Instagram and everything. There is a brilliant scene where it comes to the point in the series where Michael and Gloria are leaving to move to California. And that's when Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers decided it was time to move on from the show. And there's a brilliant scene between him and the great Carol O'Connor when Rob Reiner is saying to him as Michael Stivic, he is like, I want to thank you. He goes, I know we didn't always get along. We didn't always see eye to eye, but there were nice times weren't there. And, Carol O'Connor looks at him awkwardly, and he says, yeah, you're right. And there's a wonderful message there. We can, and only Norman Lear could have presented this the way that it was back in the day. And it's maybe Pollyanna, it's simplified, but, we all have our differences in this life. But at the core, we're all human beings, and we have to learn that about each other.
I don't think television today would allow a All in the Family to be on television today. I think it was so groundbreaking that I think in some ways we've gone backwards. But I mean, you're right. I mean, that was an iconic role in and of itself as an actor. And then for him to sort of tell you, I didn't think I could do it until Stand By Me. That was his third great movie. But then, actually, you know what? Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. Matt Wolf is our guest, CBS News Entertainment, friend of the show, where we are commiserating the news that Rob Reiner was found dead in his L.A. house with his wife this morning. One of the giants, the true giants, and the movies. It's a list of I mean, any one of these you would be on the Mount Rushmore. But When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, The American President, Ghosts of Mississippi, Rumor Has It. It's just then the documentary he did. Yeah, the documentary he did on Albert Brooks, his best friend growing up, is unbelievable. I want to talk about that, too. Matt Wolf from CBS News Entertainment. We're just getting started. America at Night, back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
At least I got the apartment.
That's what everybody says to me, too. But really, what's so hard about finding an apartment? What you do is you read the obituary column. You find out who died, go to the building, and then you tip the doorman. What they could do to make it easier is combine the obituaries with the real estate section. Say, then you have Mr. Klein died today, leaving a wife, 2 children, and a spacious 3-bedroom apartment with a wood-burning fireplace.
Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, Misery, A Few Good Men. We're talking about Rob Reiner and the passing of an absolute legend. You know, I was looking, Matt Wolf with CBS Entertainment. I didn't know this until today, but he met his wife on the set of Harry Met Sally, and he changed the ending because he met his wife and he fell in love during the movie.
Stuff, right? And it's all the other little details that are coming out. Like, I had no idea, and hit me for this. I don't know, but the woman in that famous scene in Cat's Deli at the end who says, "I'll have what she's having." That was Rob Reiner's mother.
Yeah.
Like, how did I not know this? I'm just like, oh my gosh. Another thing that I didn't realize, and you can see all of course, online. Just go anywhere and you can see all the tributes that are pouring in. And I completely forgot about this. Fred Savage, the kid from the Wonder Years, posting, he found me in a casting room in downtown Chicago and gave me the opportunity to be a part of something that has become so much bigger than anyone could have ever imagined. That movie, The Princess Bride. Totally forgot about that. And there's a wonderful picture of Rob and Fred Savage wearing a Bears jersey. I mean, the kid is like, so young and everything. And then, of course, the one that's big time floating around that really got to me is Kevin Bacon's post. Of course, Kevin Bacon starred in A Few Good Men, and that was a role that was a challenge for him. And he said basically Rob Reiner brought him in and he gave me a chance with this thing, and he set the tone. The tone comes from the top down, right, McGraw? And this guy, on every project that he worked on, he set the tone with his cast, with his crew, with everybody from catering on down. I mean, he was a friend to everybody on set. And Kevin Bacon said, he didn't have to sit down and eat lunch with me every single day. It's the little things like that that make it more enjoyable when you're doing something as challenging as making a movie. Now, negative people can say, oh, well, you're getting paid $1 billion to memorize lines. No, it's much more than that. And a lot of that falls on the director.
He created Castle Rock, right, which had all of those great movies. And then, of course, he was somehow a producer or put the money up for Seinfeld. And then Ben Affleck tells the story that they wrote Good Will Hunting, the script, and they sent it to Rob Reiner, and Rob Reiner said, you got 2 movies here. You need to, and basically was a script doctor and saved Good Will Hunting. So, I mean, his tentacles just go far and wide. Talk for a moment about his father, Carl Reiner, who was a giant in and of his own self, right? So here you have a father who's a giant in the industry, and then Rob Reiner has to sort of try and find his own way and creates his own niche for himself.
Can you imagine growing up in a house with Carl Reiner as your father, and then Uncle Mel Brooks coming over, Norman Lear just stopping by? You know, I mean, these are some crazy names to be raised up on in and around. But, you know, again, cynics will say that, well, a lot of his fame came from his father. He was a Nepo baby. No, nothing like that. Rob Reiner worked his tail off to get where he was at this point in his life. You know, he was successful as an actor. He was successful as a director. And he could have leaned back on, you know, his father's fame. I mean, of course, there's always going to be that connection. But, you know, he carved his own path. You know, he took the crappy little roles. I think one of his first roles was on the original Batman with Adam West. You know, it's just like you go back and you discover these little things like, oh, my gosh, like that's really Rob Reiner as a waiter, you know, in Batman. Like, you know what? But that was the thing.
He also took roles. He was in The Wolf of Wall Street. He was Leonardo's dad in The Wolf of Wall Street. He didn't need to do it, but he just sort of played that role so wonderfully too. So he took these sort of cameo roles that you're like, he just knocked it out of the park every time he was on stage.
Let me ask you this: do you watch The Bear?
I have seen The Bear, but I know he was in it. I have to go back and watch it now because
he had a wonderful role in that. Like all of a sudden, I'm watching, you know, the last season with my wife, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Rob Reiner. And then he came back for the last season, and I don't know, and his character started to become more integral to one of the main characters there. I don't know how they're going to do this now, you know, moving forward with the next season. I mean, certainly you're going to see a lot of tributes, especially coming up, obviously, at the Academy Awards this year. But it's just still, I mean, I'm shocked that I am actually having this conversation with you, that we are talking about a world without Rob Reiner. I mean, life throws us curveballs. This was certainly one of the biggest one in recent weeks, and
yeah, it's a great point, Matt Wolf. Because one, you're the initial shock, and then you're like, oh my goodness, was he robbed? Was it something?
Right.
Was it a lone gunman? And then to find out that his son was involved, and it's just every moment today. You heard more about this. It got more shocking and more heartbreaking every time you heard more about this story.
Right, and it's just been, look, let's face it, this news cycle the last few days has just been utterly relentless. And, you know, long story short, I got home from a long day yesterday, and I started to fall asleep, and all of a sudden it was my editor calling me up, and you know, he's like, what are you doing right now? What do you mean you're in bed? I'm like, huh, what's going on? Like, it reminded me when I was woken out of bed when Chris Cornell passed away in the overnight, you know, out in California, in New York, totally different time zones. And, you know, if I could just talk for a moment a little bit about, because I think you and I spoke about this a number of years back after Cornell died. You know, there's the whole mental health aspect of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that we all need to keep an eye on each other. We all need to look for the signs. And mental health is something that you just can't turn off. It's
Matt,
a matter.
We got to leave it there, Matt. You're a good friend for staying up late. I thank you for that. CBS News Entertainment. Matt Wolf, thanks for checking in as always. Be safe.
No
my
worries,
friend.
brother. Take care.
America at Night. McGraw Millhaven. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Now, come on, flip again. You gonna flip or not? Come on, Vern, we don't have all day. You lose, Gordy. Gordy loses. Oh, Gordy just screwed the pooch.
Does the word retarded mean anything to you?
Yeah, Gordy, go get the provisions, you morphodite.
Don't call me any of your mother's pet names.
What a wet end you are.
All right, it's hard to play a clip from Stand By Me without having to dump out of it because of all the curse words, which reminds me of a story I'll tell you about here in a second. But we're sort of reminiscing about Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, who were found dead by their daughter this morning at their Brentwood neighborhood home in Los Angeles. Apparently, the information is a little sketchy, but all we know is that Rob and Nick, the son, who has since been arrested, had an argument at a Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien earlier in the weekend. That's all we know. That's all I've read, is that they were at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. There was a scene, there was a fight, and then the only other thing I read was that Billy Crystal and Larry David were seen leaving Rob Reiner's house either the next day, stricken, looked troubled, and that's all we know. And then the police and the fire were called to the house, and they were pronounced dead, and they were stabbed to death. That's really all we know. A tragic, tragic end to one of the absolute giants in the industry. And we're just sort of not want to talk about how he died, but more or less of how he lived, because the man's work will continue on, and the man has a body of work that is on the Mount Rushmore of movies. And the people he inspired and the stories he told, just absolutely extraordinary. And I'm joking only because I got time to tell you a story. We cleared time for a guest tonight, and we couldn't get the guest online, so I have a chance to tell you a story or two tonight, which is okay because it's actually a really sweet story, and a story in which my grandmother, God rest her soul, we grew up with my grandmother, and she loved movies, and I came from a big family. I got 5 sisters. I got a cousin. We all sort of lived under the same house. And, those rare times where everybody's out of the house and it was just me and grandma type of deal. So I'm home for college, and it's the middle of the afternoon, and she hands me $10, and she says, "Hey, you know what? I feel like a baseball movie. Go down to the video store and go get a baseball movie and come back and we can watch a baseball movie together." I said, "Great idea." So I go down to the video store, and I come back, and I picked up Bull Durham. Okay, so I'm like, "Yeah, it's a baseball movie. Great." So I put it in, and the first scene, the second scene, the third scene, I'm like, "Oh, my goodness, I shouldn't. Oh, my goodness, I can't believe." And so, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of potty talk, there's a lot of, it's very funny, not when you're watching it with your grandmother. And so I'm watching this, and I'm just, sinking into the couch. I just can't believe I'm doing this. And my grandmother turns to me and says, "But there's not a whole lot of baseball in this baseball movie." I was like, oh, my goodness. So later on in the day, everybody else comes home, and I tell them this story, and they're like, "What were you thinking, renting Bull Durham with Grandma?" I was like, I wasn't thinking. I didn't know. So fast forward, might have been, I don't know, the next year or sometime later in the summer. It's her and I at the house, and she says to me, "Here's $10. Go down to the movie. Go down to the video store and try this again to get into the movie. Let's I like to sink my teeth into a good movie." So I was like, "Okay, great." So I go down to the video store, and there it is, Stand By Me, which, as I said to Matt Wolf earlier, is one of the finest movies ever made. It is so heartbreakingly beautiful, and such an ode to your friends in elementary school, and an ode to all your friends who you've lost touch with. And it is such a hauntingly beautiful movie. And so I rent Stand By Me. And so I come home, I pop it in the VCR, we're watching this, and, the kids, they have a little salty language. And so we're 10 minutes into this movie, my grandmother says, boy, these kids do have foul mouths on them. Like, you have to look past that part. And, of course, she couldn't quite get past the part that these, 13, 14-year-old kids are these foul-mouthed hooligans. But it was, nonetheless, it was a, at the moment, you spend time, you don't get enough time with your grandparents, and then they die, and all you have are those memories. And so Rob Reiner, right? Rob Reiner's just brought those memories. He's the reason for those memories. When celebrities die, you don't know them. You know their work. You like them. You dislike them work. You maybe know them. It's all right. You're caught up in your own world. But for some reason, this maybe is the way he died, how he died, how influential he was in all of our lives. I mean, you remember when you watched Harry Met Sally. You remember where you were when you watched A Few Good Men, right? These aren't just movies. These are iconic films. They've stood the test of time. They're part of the pantheon of great movies of all time. Just tragic that Rob Reiner and his wife have passed away. All right, we got a couple of phone calls here. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw. That's 1-844-262-4729. Paul in Boise, Idaho. Paul, thanks for holding on through the break. Welcome to America at Night.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I don't want to overdo the privilege that you let me have by talking with you. I heard the reports about the son. You can speculate all you want, and you never really know the truth until you find it from the individual that's being talked about. But I've known many, many, many people in my life that have a mental illness issue going on, a strong one, and they stop taking their meds because they don't need them. They feel fine.
Yeah.
And then they go over the edge, and then they try to self-medicate with beer and hard liquor and pot and whatever else is available. And he was living on the streets in between trips to the rehab, and anything that you want is available on the streets. So there's no telling, 30 days of getting cleaned up and starting a fresh life again, and then getting on the streets. I can't even imagine it. I feel so grateful this time of year to have a roof over my head.
Well, you know what's sad about this story is, and again, we don't know what happened. We do know that the son had some drug problems, right? It was well documented. They talked about it themselves. They did a movie together and talked about it. And from all accounts, right, Rob Reiner and his wife seemed to be loving parents, trying to do everything they could for their son who was in the grips of an addiction. And they have all the money in the world. They have all the resources in the world. You would think, right, that they would be able to somehow, quote unquote, fix their son, right? But in the end, this is how insidious this drug epidemic is, and or mental health is, right? I mean, you can only do so much. And I know there are parents out there who are listening to this whose son or daughter died of a drug overdose, or ended up with mental health, and it is absolutely heartbreaking every time you hear this story. And and the parents beat themselves up over it. The parents blame themselves. It's just it's heartbreaking, and the parents can't do that. You shouldn't do that, but you can't help yourself from doing it. And in this situation, it sounds like the son had put his life back together again, and who knows what happened or how it happened, but to have the one daughter come into the house and find your mom and your dad, murdered by your brother. I mean, it's just it is unimaginable. It is horrifying. It's heartbreaking. And to see it, I don't know. The whole thing is just absolutely heartbreaking, and your heart goes out to everybody. But again, I think, Paul, your point is, right, mental health. We don't talk about it enough. It's still in the shadows. Drug addiction is a real thing. It's okay to say, oh, my son or daughter died of a brain aneurysm, right? But there are parents who are still don't want to talk about their son or daughter dying of a drug overdose because of the stigma of it, right? Mental health. You're not allowed to say you have a mental health problem. It's heartbreaking, and it has to come out of the shadows, and we have to be able to talk about it. And, all this talk about health insurance and health care and everything else, we clearly have a mental health epidemic going on in this country, whether it's drugs, whether it's social media, whether it's bullying. It is a massive, whether it's gambling, right? We all have a massive mental health issue in this country, and we're just not dealing with it.
Well, I think we continually lift up the carpet and sweep everything underneath it again.
Yeah.
And hopefully it goes away.
Yeah.
The problem just gets worse exponentially, and it's
if you want to link all these stories together, right? Mental health manifests itself in all sorts of ways. Whether it's a school shooting, whether it's a shooting in a synagogue, whether it's an addiction, or coming home and killing your parents, or right? It manifests itself. It's suicide, right? It manifests itself in different ways, but it's all stems from some type of mental health issue. Hey, Paul, thanks very much for calling, and you are always welcome here, Paul. Do not think you are indulging on or taking advantage of the conversation. This is that's why open phones are here to talk about the issues of the day, and I thank you for taking time out of your night to talk to us.
God bless and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Paul, in Boise, Idaho. 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-262-4729. We're reminiscing about Rob Reiner and his wife and the tragedy that I think that heartbreaking sound you heard this morning when people found out was when finding out that Rob Reiner and his wife were murdered in their home. Just absolutely heartbreaking. America at Night, back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom.
Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. We should have let that play a little longer. That's all right, Richard. Good. By the way, Jack Nicholson was nominated for Best Supporting Role in A Few Good Men for that scene and for the whole role, actually. He lost to Gene Hackman in Unforgiven. I think it was Gene Hackman, Jack Nicholson, and Al Pacino for Glengarry Glen Ross. Those are three pretty good names for Academy Award for Best Supporting Role. Went to Gene Hackman. McGraw Millhaven, America at Night. Let's go back to the phones here. I think we got Matt in Maryland. Matt, thanks for joining us here on America at Night.
Hey there, brother. How you doing there, sir?
Good, Matt. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I was mentioning to the guy that your screener. Well, one, I'm a retired Marine, so that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah,
that performance. Absolutely amazing. But aside from that, I sobered up at the age of 19. And I remember my dad offering me that assistance. And it was a one-time deal. And you either took it and got it right, because, we were poor. We were broke. We didn't come from money, Yeah. Just so happened that he had pretty good insurance. He was a federal worker. So, and that was it. I took a hold of that, and that was what I decided I was going to do. And I listened to everybody within those 12-step rooms that, said, hey, this is the deal. You either get it right here or it's nothing but death, jails, and institutions, so, which is absolutely a fact. Nobody deserves to die by the knife by any means, especially from their son. but maybe a little less of these revolving doors for those who are like me. I think hold their feet to the fire a little bit better. That's just my opinion after 32 and a half years of riding the line, and very thankful for it. Last, a respectful criticism of my president would have been nice. Little charity would have been nice at this point. I got it. The guy said horrendous things about him. I got it. Not a fan of his politics. I certainly was not a fan of Reiner's politics. However, come on. He was murdered by his son by knife.
Yeah.
That was a great opportunity. I think it was a lost one.
Yeah, Matt. Well, first of all, congrats on what did you say, 32 years being sober. That's a great story. Look, I have not as long of a history of this. I certainly haven't been to rehab or anything, but addiction, has touched me in certain ways. But some come to it differently. You need 3, 4, 5 times, right? I mean, you don't stop trying until you're dead. And what do you do for the person who fails the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time? It's no easy answer. I get it. Some people need 3 or 4 times in rehab. Some people need to fail 3 or 4 times. As a former smoker, how many times did I quit smoking? Now, again, I don't want to compare that to drinking and everything else, but the mind is it's a dangerous place, man. But Matt, I thank you for the phone call. Appreciate the insights. Have a good day. Let's try Cole in California. Cole, welcome to America at Night. Cole, are you there? Cole? Kurt, I'm sorry. Kurt, go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, I'm in recovery myself, and it's just sad that a lot of people can't. It's a spiritual malady. I truly believe it's a spiritual malady. Whatever a person believes, but the horrendous thing of taking a family member's life is just crazy. And I know addiction is a beast, and if it's not addressed, correctly, I don't know if there's a correct way. The start is to stop doing whatever is making you do what you do.
Right.
I've got 9 years.
No, certainly, but that's talking to somebody who's on the other side of the tunnel, right? I mean, again, it's for those who aren't in the throes of an addiction, just stop drinking, just stop smoking, right? You're rich and you're famous. Why'd you get a DUI? Call a limo. That's the disease. That's the drug talking. We'll come back and talk about it next hour. But Cole or Kent or Kurt, thanks for the phone call as well. We're just getting started. Open phones. If you're on the line and you're on hold now, hold on. We'll get you back on the other side of the break. That is the end of hour number 2. Our thanks to Matt Wolf, CBS News Entertainment. And we talked about the giant movies of Carl Reiner. We'll come back and talk more and throw it open and see where we go. America at Night. Open phones straight ahead. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight behind the stick is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's Open Phones. McGraw Millhaven, America at Night. Here are the phone numbers. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Those are the phone numbers. It's Open Phones. Earlier in the show, we were talking about Rob Reiner and the death of Rob Reiner and the horrible, horrible nature of it. You know, it'd be one thing if you woke up this morning and found out that Rob Reiner had a heart attack and died in his sleep, or, some other sort of, okay, the man led a great life. He had a nice life. Let's sort of talk about, the legend that he was. But the way he died, and I promised myself today that I wouldn't necessarily concentrate on the way he died, but how he lived. And what a body of work, and what a tremendous, tremendous storyteller he was. A giant, coming from a Carl Reiner, who was a giant in and of himself. The Dick Van Dyke Show, if you go back and look at that Dick Van Dyke Show, just genius when you think about it, right? It was a sitcom about a writer's room, and Carl Reiner was the host of the show, and so he would sort of come in, and Rob and the gang, and would sort of, right, it was the jokes about the jokes in the writing room. It was genius. Matter of fact, I actually think it was a precursor to Seinfeld in a lot of ways, because it was, in a sense, it was a show about nothing. But they just didn't call it that. But just genius, that Dick Van Dyke Show, just genius. And Carl Reiner was a genius, and then Rob Reiner comes along and creates his own path in that Hollywood world. I do want to, before we go to the phones here, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-2-McGraw, or 1-844-262-4729. There was he did a documentary late, it just came out maybe a year or so ago, Rob Reiner did, on his best friend, Albert Brooks, and they grew up together, and it's on HBO, and I think it's on HBO. It's out there. If it's not on HBO, it's on a mainstream streaming service, and it goes into the life of Albert Brooks, and Albert Brooks and Rob Reiner were best friends growing up, and Rob Reiner tells the story about Albert Brooks would come over for dinner, and he would crack up his dad, Carl Reiner. And that Albert Brooks had this brilliant comedic mind where he would, even as a 13-year-old boy, would come over the house, and Carl Reiner would just sit and laugh at Albert Brooks. At the end of this documentary, it's wonderful. At the end of this documentary, and Albert Brooks is funny, but in this documentary, he's not necessarily funny. He's just interesting. And personally, I think comedians, when they're not trying to be funny, are the most interesting, right? I think Conan O'Brien, while being funny, I think is brilliant when he just talks about his life, and he's not necessarily trying to be funny. He's just interesting. Anyway, so Albert Brooks tells the story at the end of this documentary, and Rob Reiner sort of flushes it out of him. And Albert Brooks' agent asks him, says, why... Albert Brooks is telling the story at the end of the documentary. He says, why in your career did you always choose the harder road? Every time you had a chance to do the easy way or the hard way, you always chose the hard way. Why don't you ever pick the easy way to do anything, Albert Brooks? And Albert Brooks turned to his best friend, Rob Reiner, and he says, I answered him and I said, I didn't know there was an easier way. If I knew there was an easier way to do something, I would have done it. The only way I knew how to do it was the road I took. And it just so happened it was the harder road. And that has always stuck with me in my career, in my life, because it's maybe it's just for me, but to me, that resonated to me because I have been known to hit my head against the wall a few times. And then somebody somewhere comes around and says, there's a door right here. You can just open the door and walk right through. But no, I prefer to bang my head against the wall, screaming and yelling and ranting and raving, and then finally breaking the wall down with my head. And so many other people just walked around the wall. And I'm one of those that have always taken the harder road. I didn't mean to take the harder road. I wanted to take the easier road. I just never saw the easier road. And it was just a brilliant comment by two friends. One's a storyteller. The other one was the subject. And it was at the end of that documentary, and it has always stayed with me. And I've mentioned it numerous times to friends and in conversations about career and life and the world we live in. Just, right? Why do you take the harder road? Why do you do it harder? I didn't plan on doing it the harder way. That was the only road I saw. I think we've got Murray in Bethesda, Maryland. Murray, are you still on the line with us? Murray, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Murray, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for calling.
Hey, listen, you're doing a great job. I'm loving the show.
Thank you.
I happen to be on the same wavelength with you regarding Stand By Me. I love that movie. I'm so appreciative of the sound bites that you played. When you played them, I can just see each scene that they came from. Now, you might get a kick out of the fact that the year that movie came out, I called Larry King when he was running this radio show because he had a guest on who was talking about the upcoming Oscar nominations and, saying who the likely candidates for Best Picture were going to be. And I called up and I said, Larry, I think that Stand By Me is better than all the ones that your guest is talking about. Now, Larry had never heard of that movie, but his guest had seen it, and he said he agreed with me that it was an exceptional movie. He said, but it's just a small movie, and there's no big studios putting, money behind a campaign. So it's not it has no chance at all of being nominated for an Oscar.
Really interesting. So I'm just looking up here what the Best Picture was in the movie came out in 1986, so it would have been 1987, right? That would have been the Best Picture. And I'm trying to come up here. It was Platoon, Children of a Lesser God, Hannah and Her Sisters, The Mission, and A Room with a View. Now, no disrespect to any of those movies, but what has stood the test of time more than all of those? And I would say Stand By Me has stood the test of time much. Those were good movies. Some of them were really good. Platoon's good. Children of a Lesser God's great. But Stand By Me, it's first of all, it's somewhat hubris to give an award for an art project, right? I mean, how do you judge art, right? One man likes it, one person doesn't like it. But that's, we do it. We love it. But it's a great story of you calling up Larry King. Yes, you and I agree that on the quality of Stand By Me, but if you have a thick enough skin, please allow me to disagree with you on something related to this. I love it. Go ahead.
Okay. I think you have overstated the quality of Stand By Me because maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but I think I almost heard you say it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And see, no way. I mean, for instance, the Philadelphia Story, His Girl Friday with Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell, The Best Years of Our Lives, All About Eve. Now, those movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s are towering cinematic accomplishments, and nothing that Rob Reiner ever came near comes, anywhere close to those humongous accomplishments.
All right, now hold on a second here. Those are fighting words. No, I'm totally teasing you. You don't think A Few Good Men is up there with one of the greatest movies ever made?
Absolutely not. It's shtick. It's shtick. You can't handle the truth. It's entertaining. It was good for its time, but I mean, no, compared to the movies that I mentioned, doesn't hold a candle to.
Well, this is why I said trying to give an award for a movie is ridiculous, right? I mean, we could argue about this forever. It's just never ending, right? I mean, you could argue Philadelphia Story, The Best Years of Our Lives, again, time and place, after the war, these guys come home, they're having a heart, right? It's PTSD before PTSD is even acknowledged, right? I mean, that's how genius that movie was for all sorts of reasons. Great movies, and I don't take anything away from any of those. You got The Godfather, 1 and 2, right? I mean, there's tremendous movies all over the place. But for me, personally, where I was, when I saw it, how I saw it, Stand By Me, I saw it with my high school, elementary school friends, and it was a time and place, and it just struck me as, I don't know, where I was, how I was. For me, Stand By Me moved me more than any other movie I've ever seen.
I grant you, Stand By Me is a perfect movie. There's not a false note in it. It's just exceptional. It's exquisite.
Yes.
It's really, really good. But the other ones that I mentioned are more than good. They are great.
Okay, how about this, Murray? We can agree to disagree and still be friends. How about that?
I agree 100%.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the Larry King story. Love it.
Okay, take care.
All right, there you go. Murray from Bethesda, Maryland. Good stuff. All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I love it. Look, I could argue movies all day long. You don't know what you're talking about. Philadelphia Story. No. A Few Good Men. What are you doing? You're out of your mind. With that being said, The Godfather is pretty good. I'll tell you. I'll pour gasoline on the fire. The best baseball movie ever made, in my humble opinion, A League of Their Own by Penny Marshall, who was married to Rob Reiner. I think that is the finest baseball movie ever made. We'll come back. We'll argue. We'll talk. Anything you want to talk about. 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-262-4729. We're choosing to remember how Rob Reiner lived, not how he died. But we can talk about anything else, too. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, let's go to South Carolina, Wilmington, South Carolina. David, welcome to America at Night and Open Phones.
Hey, thanks. It's just Wilmington's just north of South Carolina, but my main home is in South Carolina. Neither here nor there.
Okay.
So, boring topic, but it's the effects of it are talked about all the time, which is high prices. And this new word, affordability, which I think is setting up the playbook for universal basic income in the next presidential election. But how we got to high prices, it's simply, I think, law of supply and demand. Really simple economics. When we increase the population the last few years, kind of artificially, by, say, roughly 20 million, all right? So that increases demand for all goods and services. This is not political. This has nothing to do with race or politics or parties. It's simply economics. When you artificially boost demand or unexpectedly in a strange way, by, let's say, by opening the borders, you increase demand for goods and services, you're going to raise prices. And then combine that with pumping about roughly overall with all the COVID relief programs, let's say about $3 trillion, maybe more, maybe less. You create monetary inflation, which leads to price inflation. Even my Marine daughter, who never went to college, told me that. So it's just inevitable. It's not political. It's not racial. It's just the fact that we have higher prices, and then other things happen too. Like one example is coffee, where Trump's temporary tariffs raised the price of coffee, and he dropped the tariffs, and people are used to paying that, and the prices stay up. So it's hard to get prices back down. It's going to take a while. So,
well, but
one other point.
first of all, Well, yeah, first of all, I mean, yes, there's only one law in the universe, and it's supply and demand. Granted. But there's all sorts of other things involved with that as well. You mentioned the tariffs. If you more workers, you mentioned the 20 million people coming in the country. I don't know where you get that number. Experts say there's 11 or 12 million undocumented workers in the country. However many came in over the last number of years, they took jobs that Americans didn't want. So they kept prices or labor down. So therefore, you could get the prices lower, right? Supply and demand, but there are a lot of other things included in that than just supply and demand. But you're right. I mean, that's the one true law, supply and demand. Thanks. Hey, Tony's on the line. We're going to get to Tony on the other side of the break. America at Night, 1-844-2-McGraw. Tony, I'd get you on, but I'm out of time. I'm at the bottom of the break. We'll get you on the other side of the break. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. That was from South Carolina. Somebody new. We'd love to hear that. Love to see that. But, yeah, supply and demand, the only law. That's why you scalp tickets, right? Paying $500 for a football game, or you're paying $2 for a football game. Who wants to go to the game? How many tickets are there? That's why drugs, varying degrees of prices, depending on how many drugs are around, right? But there are other things involved with all of that than just supply and demand. Back in a moment, America at Night.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, it's open phones, America at Night, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We're talking about Rob Reiner. That seems to be the topic of conversation. We are choosing to remember how the man lived and his legacy as opposed to how the man died. But heartbreaking story nonetheless. Tony in Montreal, thanks for holding on. Welcome to America at Night.
You got to be one of the most polite hosts in radio. I think you got to go into the Hall of Fame as being one of the most polite. That is for sure, McGraw. I really appreciate the way you handle your callers. I just want to say, I grew up on the 70s sitcoms and, just an amazing sitcom cast, and Rob Reiner and the characters, Gloria and O'Connor and everybody, it's just amazing. And today I actually heard the first time that Reiner came on and was introduced as Gloria's, Sally Struthers' boyfriend. And you hear the banter back and forth between Carol O'Connor. And, the issue was, what are you? What are you? I'm American. I'm American. And then, of course, it comes out he's Polish. And, the meathead stuff. And today that would not go over at all, and it's just a different view of America back then. And I just think the tragedy was phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And, at the same time, you have really crazy people on the planet just shooting people in Australia. And McGraw, I don't understand the way the world works right now. And I don't see it being safe in schools at Brown. I don't feel it's safe anywhere anymore, whether you're in a synagogue or you're in an elementary school or you're in a church in Indiana. And it never stops. And I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know what it is. But, I just cannot understand the reaction to the people that were killed, like in Australia. It just seemed like it was a little bit of a passing event. in you know, and Rob Reiner's thing got so much coverage, and I just felt that wasn't fair because of the poor people that were killed there.
Tony, first of all, great phone call. I appreciate the phone call. I appreciate the nice compliment, the comments you made about me being nice. Doesn't cost me anything to be nice to somebody. Doesn't cost me anything. Somebody calls up and has a difference of opinion. All right, I don't hate them. I don't despise them. We have a difference of opinion. One wants higher taxes, one wants lower taxes. That doesn't make you less human. It doesn't make you the devil. And I think the coarsening of our politics, the coarsening of our daily lives, I think social media, I think we've incentivized hate on social media. And where do we get most of our news now? Apparently from social media, which are news organizations. They're agenda-driven, hate-filled machines that only make money the more outrageous they are. And so that's the rabbit hole we're all going down. I'll tell you this. I don't hate it. People, you know, I not that I know what I'm doing. I don't like to be angry. I'm a nice guy. I talk to a wall for 20 minutes. I don't care. I'll sit on the park bench and talk to a stranger for 20 minutes. I just like talking to people. I don't like crowds, but I like people. And I don't know what to say about the shooting in Brown, at Brown University. It's how many of these have we gone through, and how many of these do we sort of retreat to our own agenda, right? If it's a white man, it's mental illness. If it's a Muslim man, it's terrorism. If it's somebody from Mexico, it's seal the borders, right? Our reaction to these things is based on our own agenda, based on who did it, right? I don't know what else to say about it. So it sounds callous, and I don't mean it to be callous. I just don't know what to say about it. There's nothing left to be said. It is what it is. It's the world we live in. It's horrible. It's tragic. It's terrible. It's all form of mental health. And whatever happened with Rob Reiner and his son, I'm no expert, but there's got to be some connection between Rob Reiner's son and the person who shot up Brown University. There's some connection there, some way, some mental health is festering in their minds, and it comes out in different ways. But it's there. I don't know what to talk. I don't know how. I don't know what to say. It's happens so often, and it's so routine. Happens almost every day that now. And Tony, I'll give you the last word. Now, I was reading a story the other day. How many people have now suffered through 2 shootings? Right? There are people who were in Brown who suffered school shootings while they were in high school. They go to Brown, and now they're part of another school shooting. So now it isn't like you've had one school shooting. Now there are kids who have gone through this 2 times. The whole thing's ridiculous.
This, okay? I advocate for peace. Peace is the best solution to everything. But when you have people that are advocating and targeting certain groups, whether it's a gay group, whether it's a Muslim group, or whether it's a Jewish group, that is a degenerative, and it's vile, and it's scary. Because I saw the video in Australia, I cannot believe that there were human beings shooting other human beings like they were hunting ducks. And to me, what type of hatred or what type of mental illness is in your mind to actually do that is beyond my comprehension. I cannot even hurt the fish that I catch. I throw them back, let alone want to hurt them. You understand?
Yeah.
And when I see that, McGraw, and what I like about you and what I liked about your former host, Rich Valdez, is that you guys, you give us a chance. You let us talk. Both of you are great hosts. And I was, used to Rich, but you are a great guy on the radio. I could tell you love your job and you love talking. That's why I call you in. And I think that it's important that this station gives America and obviously Canada and wherever else a chance to air it out, because we can't just sit in our minds and ruminate, because today was a bad day. Bad day.
Tony, thanks for the phone call. Say a little prayer, Tony. Thanks for checking in, as always. It is America at Night. It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. How about the video? Did you see the video of the guy in Australia who overtook the guy with the gun? The video is plain as can be. The guy's sitting there with a rifle shooting people, and this other man who apparently has no concept of guns. He was interviewed later. He said he didn't know anything about guns, or he's in the hospital. He got hit. But apparently somebody who knew him said he doesn't know anything about guns, but he just ran up to this guy and tackled him and took the gun away from him. He pointed the gun at the guy. The guy ran away, and then he takes the gun, he puts it up against the tree. I mean, talk about a hero. Unbelievable video. Heartbreaking, but an unbelievable video. And, I mean, just, again, the stories, I don't know what to say. It's when they happen, I don't know. It's just the only things change are the names, maybe some of the details, the numbers. But outside of that, it's the same story just every day, every other day, every other week. It's just it's just too many people make too much money off of distilling hate. That's social media. That's how you make money today. That's how you get people to click. That's how you get people to get money, is by creating more hate. And the more hate you create, the more clicks you get, the more money you make. It's an insidious incentive. McGraw Millhaven, America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven, where the nation comes to talk. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
It happened 3 weeks ago. You know how a year to a person is like 7 years to a dog?
Yes? Is one of us supposed to be a dog in this scenario?
Yes.
Who is the dog?
You are.
I am.
Harry Met Sally, one of the great movies of all time. We're talking about Rob Reiner, and we're remembering how the man lived and not how he died. John in St. Louis, thanks for joining in. America at Night, open phones. Hello.
Oh, thanks for having me, McGraw. And another great show with Murray in Bethesda made me look up some things. And then, sorry to hear about the news with the Reiner family. And so with the list of 10 AFI films, I was scanning that, and I'm thinking, wow, because you guys were talking about your favorites.
Yeah.
And I had, sorry to say, seen the Stand By Me. I missed a lot of things, but I've seen a lot of things, actually, from the old days, more so. But I'm looking up, in 1938, when Snow White comes out, it was Disney's first big one, I guess, after maybe, the other one with the mouse. And this was Technicolor, I forget what year, but C.S. Lewis, 38, and his friend Tolkien, J.R. Tolkien, went to see it together because, both of them are, they understand mythology, and that's was their main focus for a long time. And neither one were impressed, and I vaguely am aware of all this because even as young people, you're maturing, and you look at things and you go, okay, it's this, it's that, and and then you get older and you realize some manipulation. And I also looked at another observation, just popped up on the phone, I guess, because of television, how from its beginning, the cathode ray tube, as they call it, is it's a manipulation device. And the goal, it does put people into a trance. From the old days to the present. I stopped looking at a lot of stuff because of the jump cuts. You know, you want to keep up sometimes, and sometimes you don't. And even, you know.
Well, but I mean, but hold on a second. First of all, shame on you. You haven't seen Stand By Me. So there's a giant hole in your movie viewing history. Okay, you've got to go see. You got to go see Stand By Me. You have to.
I'll see it. I just looked a little bit at the IMDb, and I get what the characters are in. And by the way, what was that other wonderful picture with the guy that was he was an oddball. He's still around as an actor, and my friend's kids loved it. My friend it was I can't think of the picture, but he was tall, gangly, and it was a small budget, with it made like $100 million, and he's from Indiana or something. But I'm sure somebody's listening.
I mean, I need a little bit more to go on than it was a small movie out of Indiana. Breaking Away?
You're close. That was the bicycle thing.
That was the bicycle movie.
And there was a guy in the one I'm forgetting. It's not real important to remember it, but it was a great picture of the guy is an awkward teenager. And there's somebody like, maybe it was River Phoenix played his friend or somebody.
What's eating Gilbert Grape?
No,
I don't know. Well, look. If you remember back in the day, right? And I mentioned this the other night on the show. We couldn't go see a movie because it was PG-13, right? I was 12. I wasn't allowed to go see it. But now these kids are on their phone, right? And they see the most vile, disgusting, despicable, racist, pornographic, violent images the world has ever created, and there's no filter. There's nothing. And so we grew up in an age where we couldn't go see a PG-13 movie, and we hand them this device that has the most vile pictures and violent things on it. And we have these monsters who are trying to get to our children, and people don't think twice about handing this machine to these kids. So, you want to know why there are mass shootings? It's because we have no more guardrails. We have zero guardrails. We allow these children just to be experiments, social experiments. And I mean, they're screaming for help, right? The amount of mental health issues, the amount of suicide, the amount of drug use, the amount of all of these things is off the charts because we're not protecting the kids at all. So it's heartbreaking. Hey, John, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Call back anytime. I want to try and sneak in another phone call here. John in Brunswick, Ohio. John, welcome to America at Night.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This isn't pleasant, but we have to address it. Now that it's been thoroughly disproven, can we finally get over this partisan fantasy that it's only the Democrats saying horrible, rotten, disgusting things in response to murder? Can we finally retire that and admit that it's on both sides?
Okay. I appreciate the phone call, John. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks for the phone call. Let's go to, is it Yogi in Ohio? Yogi, are you there?
No. No, you mean Oklahoma. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yogi in Oklahoma. Go ahead. Take it away, Yogi.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for checking in.
I have a question. Why do we keep having shooting going on?
I mean, what? Jazz, we had to split the atom. I mean, it's an easier answer, right? Short answer is I don't know. And if anybody knew, they would fix it immediately. But I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think it's a simple answer. It's been going on for,
It's been going on since 1999. And then 2000s. That's all.
Right. I mean, when was Columbine? 99. But there were sort of shootings before that too. Columbine was the first one, I guess we still remember. But there were other shootings. Somebody shoot up a fast food joint in San Diego at one point. I mean, it's a relatively new phenomenon, and it's relatively mostly in the United States. Though there have been some mass shootings, like the one in Australia. There was a couple of other ones around, but they are overwhelmingly American. I don't think we have an easy answer, and everybody wants to blame everybody else, and everybody goes to their agenda. But the short answer is, Yogi, I don't think anybody has the real answer. It's heartbreaking, but this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm listening to you from 93.5 KLKC in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So.
Oklahoma City. I've been there. I've been to the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Have you been to Oklahoma City bombing memorial?
No, I have not. No, I haven't been there since then. But no, that's if I ever end up going there, I will make it a point to pay my respects. Yogi, thanks for checking in.
What is the other show that used to be on the air? I can't remember what it's called now.
Yogi, I got to go. Yogi, I'm short on time. Thanks for the phone call. I'm up against the break, as they say. Thanks to Matt Wolf from earlier tonight and Jonathan Cohen, who wrote the book Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. That's going to do it for us. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight and the man behind the stick is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.